1970 340 Duster. It is a drag car. So let's go over a few of the things that we're going to have to do to this thing to make it where we can even drive it. It has been sitting for a very long time. For one, all the tires are dry rotted. They're going to have to be replaced. We'll have to redo the wheels, polish them up. All the glass in it turned yellow from sitting for a very long time. And I've already took the liberty to see if I could clean this up, and I've already took care of the windshield so you can see the difference from the side to the front. So let's take a look at the inside of this thing. As you can see, we have pretty much a complete car. Let's take you inside this thing and show you that it has pretty much all your switches, shifters, got the MSD in the bottom. The back's been done very well. As you can see, some of the body work on this thing is going to need a lower quarter. Going to have to reseal the gas tank. We have some cancer and some problems down in this area. Let's take a look inside the trunk. Pretty much it's just a trunk skin that they've got. Let's come inside this thing. As you can see, it's already got the fuel cell, everything's set up. I put a battery in it so we can test start it. All the aluminum's been done, it's nice, it just needs to be cleaned up. Now let's take a look underneath the hood. Now we've already started this motor and it wasn't running on all the cylinders, so I pulled a valve cover off and found that we had a little bit of damage of some overwinding this motor. But it is a stock 340. And what I mean by stock 340 is that it's pretty much a 70 model that belongs in the car. It's not all stock, it's got some components inside, it's cam wise and stuff. They've got a set of 360 heads on it. And what's happened is it's actually broke a rocker arm tube. Been a few push rods, so number one cylinder was getting no compression. The rest of them felt fine when I checked the compression on it. So we're going to pull this motor out and go through it and make sure everything's going. We're going to clean all this compartment up, repaint it. Hopefully it's going to look nice. Now that we went around the car, kind of showed you a few things on it, the motor, inside. Let's get it inside and pick it up on the lift, and let's look underneath this thing. All right, let's go underneath this thing. We've got our headers, bottom side of the motor with a big oil pan, got a little bit of rust on it. Still have the original drum brakes, which we're going to go through. Going to replace the shocks. Let's go toward the rear. Got the drive shaft loop, our crossbar for the ladder bars. We do have the frame extension pipe been put in. And you can see the floorboards are in good shape, just have some rust. We're going to clean all this up and paint it. Got a Dana 60 rear end, 456 pause unit. You can tell at one time they did have some wheelie bars on this. We have dual fuel pumps, 1 and 2, both of them run. Fuel filter, bottom of the fuel tank. We're going to replace the shocks. Once again, clean all this up and paint it. So that's pretty much the rundown of the car. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and pull this motor out. So we're going to start while the car's up in the air and make sure that we get everything unbuttoned from underneath. So like I said, I'm going to show you as we go through it, so let's go with it. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pull the dry shaft out. And unfortunately we're hitting the dry shaft on our cross loop, so I'm going to have to pick the rear end up a little bit with a transmission jack. So we're going to take care of that and we'll get this dry shaft out. When removing these bolts have not been out for a very long time. Sometimes you take a hammer and tap on them, it gives it an impact effect and helps get these bolts out. I did spray them at first with some anti-rust. They're in there pretty good. Now that the straps and bolts are out, we'll take a little screwdriver, got a little bend on the end of it, a little pry bar, and get this dry shaft up out of here. I'm holding these two caps, keep them cap from coming off in the bearing. Now that we got that off, I like taking some electrical tape and putting some tape around it. Alright, now we're going to remove this dry shaft. This is an automatic. Sometimes we get a little fluid to come out, but we shouldn't because we're not at that big of an angle. And there's the mess. One thing I like to do, take you a rubber latex glove, put it over the end of the dry shaft, or tail shaft, and take your tape, and this is going to keep a mess for when you pull the motor out. You get an angle and all is going to run in the floor. One thing I hate an automatic is because of the mess they make. Our next steps, we're going to take these bolts loose from the cross member. We'll leave the bolts in, but we're going to take the nuts off, remove the bolt for the mount, and we're going to come in, remove our transmission lines. We actually might leave the transmission lines on because we're going to pull transmission motor and all, but we are going to have to take our shifter handles loose. Right now we got the nuts removed, the two nuts removed here. The bolts are about ready to pull out, and I've got all the bracketry. It wasn't but two bolts, one little pin that removes right off. Now we're going to move to the front of the motor. Up here on the front of this motor, we're going to remove the radiator hose and the two transmission lines here. That way when we pull this out, all of it's going to come at one time. So we're going to get something set up here to catch this water. We have the water draining, got a nice pan set up. Start taking these loose while the water is draining. Now that we got all this, the hose undone, transmission lines, we're going to lower the car back down and we're going to start on the top side. Alright, so now we're going to remove the motor, and to do so we got to disassemble quite a bit. For one, we're going to take the radiator out. The carburetor's got to come off. We're going to pull the distributor. You know, we got very minimal wiring. I mean, we had, you know, the water temperature, the wires that run the distributor, pretty much all the wiring that you're going to have on this. So, but let me get to it, and maybe we'll show you a picture by picture flash through it. Radiator, fan and motor, carburetor, distributor, and now the headers are off and the residual of the wiring and the coil. So all we like now is these front motor mounts. These two here and here, and we'll be ready to lift the motor out. Now we have the motor out of the car. We're going to have to separate the motor from the transmission. We need to remove the starter also. Transmission separated from the motor. I now have the motor away from the transmission and placed on a motor stand, and we put the car back up on the lift so we can start work on it again. Now that I've got the motor out of the car, we got to clean all this rust up underneath the car. We're going to do that first. I took the liberty of doing the back half. This is what the front half looks like, and I'm going to show you what I've already done in the back. Here's the back half, been cleaned, painted. I removed the fuel pumps, fuel filter and lines, kind of cleaned them up. I'm pretty sure we're going to replace the fuel filter, but I cleaned it anyway. We are going to replace the shocks. I'm probably going to repaint the springs. But with just a little bit of cleaning, I've removed all the lines and let them hang down, and you can see where I've stopped and started. I've got to continue forward. To do the cleaning on the bottom of this, all I've used some Scotch-Brite and one of these. You can buy the little wire brushes from a Home Depot. They're like $4.90 a piece, so you might as well say $5. And so far I've gone through, just to do this back half, this is my fourth one, so you're probably looking at $40 to do the whole bottom of the car. Now I'm going to be tearing the motor on down. First thing we're going to do is take off the intake, this valve cover here. The best part about taking one down is finding the good stuff on the inside. That's pretty much the top side tore down. We got some good high top pistons, 30 over. We'll have to turn this thing upside down here in a little bit. Gotta get the oil drained out of it. Here's the motor. We've got it completely disassembled. I've already got the cylinder honed out. Turn the light on there. Pretty much ready for reassembly. I've got to get all the freeze plugs back in. Here's the rotating assembly. And let me show you. As you can see, that ring right there, that runs all the way around that piston. That's the culprit of number one. It came up, someone kind of overwound it, hit the valve, and that's what broke our rocker arm tube. But after checking everything seems to be fine. It just broke that tube. Motor back together, married to the transmission, ready to go back in. Front of the car's been all redone. Alright, take a look at the fuel system. Fuel pump. Fuel pump did have two fuel pumps. It's been broke down to one now. New fuel filter. Still gonna replace the shocks. Haven't done that yet. Drivetrain. A new custom mount for the transmission. So let's take a look at the car here. You can see, had to rebuild the structure of the car where the roll bars attached on. Also put roll bars back on it that were missing, that were there at one time. Motor's been rebuilt, clean, painted. And right now at this point, as you can see by the mess on the ground, we're doing the paint and body. Right now we're taking the paint off the car. Still have some paint to go. And pretty much there's more than one method to remove the paint. Fortunately, this paint's coming off pretty easy by just scraping it with a scraper. Not having to use a chemical or anything, so that's what we're doing. We've already cut out our bad spots. Going to do the metal work on the quarter panels. And we've got one spot up here on the door. It's been cut out. Replace that. Alright, we got most of the body work done. Or let's say just starting. Still have to do all the sanding. Quarter panel's been cut out and replaced with new metal. And the front fender that was pretty rough shape. Pretty much had to replace that hole lower. There's a piece that I cut out. It even has the new wraparound for the bottom. Got paint. The original B5 blue. My paint booth's a little tight. Kind of hard to get around in here. That came out better than expected. Front piece there. And we've got the grill piece hanging over on the wall. The hood's still not painted. We're going to do it flat black. Well, actually it's semi-gloss. Satin black, like the 6-pack hood. (1970) 340 Duster, completely finished. Alright, we're here at Orlando Speed World. We're going to see what this car is going to do. So let's get this thing unloaded and see what happens. Getting off the line. This is the finished product. Ready to go to sale tomorrow. Car's been sold, heading out.